All right. Joe Peltzer from Guy at the Movies here with Jay Silverman from the new film Camera. Jay, super excited to chat with you about this really impactful film. Welcome to the chat here.
Joe, thank you so much. I'm not only thrilled to be involved on one of your shows, but more importantly, talking about something that's a very personal film that I just finished. So thank you.
Absolutely. So for those that are tuning in, Camera is a film about a boy who is being bullied and he's nonverbal and he finds solace and friendship in a man played by Beau Bridges. And they kind of bond together over this camera, using an old film camera to kind of find a hobby together that they can both find a shared language in, I would say. And ultimately, I think the thing that really hit for me is that you find these two individuals who have their own set of issues in their lives, and they find strength in one another. You know, an old man with a young boy, and just how they kind of come together to tackle the world there. Starting off, can you tell us a little bit just what was the impetus for this film?
Well, my producer, Bethany Sorona, found she's our development person as well as a producer here. She found this wonderful script from Jamie Murphy from Ireland. And it was an award-winning script, independent film, first-time writer. And we were just moved by the content because number one, she's always searching for something that I personally can add my own touch to, and I was a photographer for 35 years. So for me to be engaged in a motion picture that's about photography is something that was alluring. Additionally, as you mentioned at the beginning, the protagonist, this character named Oscar, has an ailment, and his ailment is he can't speak. And that is exactly one of my three daughters was born premature and essentially had the same characteristics as the character in the screenplay.
Wow. So definitely have that personal connection to what you were saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did that frame how the story may have changed over production, or were there any other, I would say, personal characteristics or personal experiences that you were able to infuse in the film?
Well, Joe, number one, I only make movies from a labor of love. And this movie, above all of my films, is directed at inspiring mentorships and this idea that, we're all human beings and we all have our pros and cons. And the fact that the protagonist had lost his father and his mother was a widow, and they come to a new community, which is a little fishing village, and are essentially almost instantly treated like dirt. And the little boy, who, as you know, has an inability to speak, uses his camera as a communication tool. And what attracted me to the screenplay, and it's something that I think about all the time when I screen the film, is about, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes into the movie, you learn that the camera doesn't even work. And I use this analogy. It's kind of like taking your child to Walmart or Target, and they have in the front of the store one of those little miniature cars with a steering wheel and so forth. And the little kid, imagines what it would be like to drive a car. And in this particular case, the protagonist had inherited basically number one a film camera, not a digital camera, and basically a collectible that was created in the 60s. And he pretends. But what's so exciting about that page when I read it in the script was this idea that his mentor brings that to life because he has this gift of being able to repair things.
It's actually really fascinating watching Miguel, the young actor that portrays Oscar in this film, kind of throw himself into the role. And I always wonder with young actors, specifically those that are tasked with playing a role that has such a major life impact, a nonverbal boy here. Can you talk a little bit about just Miguel's presence on set and how he went about that role?
It's extraordinary. And I say this on every interview that I've done so far. And it's all the credit that he's getting now, is an extraordinary universal message that this kid has a gift in real life. And I'll tell you, we casted this movie during the pandemic, and I'm not exaggerating, probably got 600, 700 submissions, all Zoom. And Beth Holmes, our casting agent, was diligently trying to find the jewel, and we found Miguel, and among, maybe 10, 12 other kids that filled the character, but Miguel had something that was special. And I don't think um, it should be dismissed that it was just great acting. This kid is so dedicated to his craft that, in all honesty, Beau the other night at a Q&A, put his arm around the child during the Q&A and said, there was a chemistry. And every filmmaker, including myself, who has had both the benefit and the non-benefit of watching chemistry on screen, it was just so magical because, in my mind, Joe, I think it's Beau Bridges' best performance of his career. He's in every scene, and he just adapted, and this child adapted. And I know that I'm going on here, but it's so compelling to see this scene that takes place in a dark room where they're profile to profile, inches apart, and the little boy with, and I'm saying this to you, maybe I gave him a note here and there, but it's just organic. And what Beau does is talk. He's delivering the script with a little improv, and you can see nothing is forced. And it's funny because I've been on a number of podcasts with filmmakers, asking about making an independent movie. And they ask me, what's the wisdom you could give us for our movie if we're casting a little kid? And I give this wisdom, and I do call it wisdom, is when you cast a child, it's more important to cast the parents because they single-handedly could sabotage the entire project.
Sure. That's really fascinating. And I'm assuming then that you cast
So
good
the
parents and
in his case, he's got a mother by the name of Michelle that, without her involvement, and the fact that he had an acting coach and she helped him, I mean, he took great notes. I would sit here and do a Zoom call with him and Beau, and he would, for the benefit of non-critical but observational, he would miss the mark, and
Mhm.
I would say, look, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And this isn't during the shoot. This is like on a Zoom call.
Yeah.
And he took that note. Next day, come back, and it's like brilliant. Okay.
It struck me watching this, and you just alluded to this a little bit. He's acting opposite Beau Bridges, who we've known forever, has been in everything. And yes, I think this is one of Beau's best performances because I think it's one of his most intimate performances. And to be able to counter that, or to be able to match that, I should say, as a young actor is just incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Well, I'm very flattered you said that because obviously we were lucky enough to capture it on film. I will say that Beau creates an environment that is non-intimidating, and he's super committed to the subject matter. And in his case, he had a mentor, which was his father, and he also had John Wooden, and who was one of UCLA's best coaches, and the principle of the pyramid, and the idea that you don't play sports to win, you play sports for the fulfillment. Of course, you'd love to win, but if you don't live with the dimensional aspect of fulfillment, otherwise you're going to go crazy. And to me, and of course, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you if I didn't have a mentor that
Yeah.
affected me in a similar way, because mentorships are less and less and less available today.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
I hope this movie encourages people that are my age and older that, want to share some of the wisdom that they've encountered over their career.
Absolutely. Yes, passing it along is the best thing that anyone can do in any profession. Can you talk a little bit about locations? Because
Yeah.
Jasper's Cove in the film is absolutely beautiful and stunning cinematography. Where did you film this, and kind of what was the angle in capturing the beauty of the area and almost playing a role in the film itself?
Well, Andrew Jarrett, who was the cinematographer, did, just a brilliant job. Let's be honest, I'm a photographer, so you'd think there would be some titillation on my behalf to want to put him in his place. I let him
Looking
go.
over his shoulder a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, in all honesty, I give him so much credit because number one, he was so dedicated that he, chose still lenses for the Panavision. Number two, he adapted to the locations in a way, and it's indicative of a talent. And incidentally, he's got a mentor that he reminded me of all the time. And so when we chose Morro Bay to play Jasper, it wasn't without going to Canada and Nova Scotia, going to Boston, even considering shooting it in Ireland, where the writer came from. To me, as a producer and a director, I can tell you that there's no decision that's made singularly. You've got to anticipate the economics and the challenges of making a movie in 18 days. That's what it took to make this movie. So, so if you take two steps back and go, okay, so we established the movie in Morro Bay and it's called Jasper fictitiously. We were so fortunate to have the same mountain range that exists in Morro Bay in Santa Clarita, believe it or not.
Oh,
It
wow.
was just fate. And we ended up getting a location, which was a back lot in Santa Clarita that had a western town that we converted into a fishing village.
Very nice.
And through visual effects, we brought the mountain from from Morro Bay into that scene.
Jay, I'm stuck on the 18-day thing because I'm going back to thinking about Miguel and how good he was in this film, but thinking about the intensity that he must have felt in an 18-day shoot. That even makes it more impressive.
You know what's and this has nothing to do with me. This has to do with just the concept. Just I used to be in just fascination because I was a filmmaker shooting commercials and a photographer my whole career. So you wake up one morning and you're working with a kid and he's got to deliver two lines, okay? And you barely make it because he's got to go to school, he's got to be dressed, he's got to be in made up, and then he gets on the set and he can't deliver two lines. Okay. So here you are with an 18-day shoot that every day he's got to go to school. Every day he's got to travel to a location. I mean, it's enormous. Forget about what the movie looks like.
Sure.
I'm just saying. And the fact that it's his first movie. Now he's done a number of Disney animation where he's the voice. Ironically, he's not the voice in my movie, but I'll say this with just an inordinate amount of passion. He delivered every day. Came to the set with a smile, and as a matter of fact, on the last day of the shoot, he said, "Would you mind me wandering around and complimenting the crew people?" And you talk about filmmakers being able to remember the names of their cast and crew when they do these shows. It's really challenging. This kid knew everybody's name on the set and literally went on for the entire lunch break, and we had to like stop him, okay, because we had to go back to work. You follow my point?
Absolutely.
So he's a jewel. He's a one of a kind.
It's funny we were talking about, the kids that you used to work with who would memorize 2 lines, and then we here have Miguel who, has the whole script that he needs to have memorized, and we were just joking around prior how we have trouble with names. So, more power to Miguel there. What kind of difficulties come along with an 18-day shoot and a film like this that is so intimate and on a smaller scale? What challenges did you encounter, that were either planned for or unplanned for?
Well, I mean, it would be cliche if I told you, which is true. The last shot of the entire movie, we got into, which I think like hurricane conditions in Santa Clarita during the rains of last year. And it was enormous, so enormous that Beau Bridges mentioned at the Q&A that he can't even believe we used the scene in
Oh,
the
wow.
movie because it was thundering, it was raining so hard, and the cinematographer, God bless Andrew, for fighting every moment in the rain, and we had 30 extras on the set, and we had a course of, 20 by 20 over their head, stopping the rain. But even when Bruce Davidson is delivering his incredibly passionate lines, the water's dripping, you know, and of course the audio, and I can go on and on. We had no problems in post,
Wow.
and I have to say, that when you look at the editor and you look at the idea that he was able to, piece together that moment. Every filmmaker talks about this stuff, in I'll tell you this right now. I don't want to mention the name, but on my lot, they're making a sequel to a major movie here. And I just looked out the window and the stars were walking with an umbrella over their head. They've been here for 5 days, okay? And they're shooting at a record store next door. And it's just a coincidence because they're probably in the time that they're here, perhaps spending $1 million, one, not to me, but to produce this movie. And
Sure.
there's got to be two shifts, meaning an A team and a B team, because they're pre-lighting while they're somewhere else shooting. And you don't have this luxury when you make an independent film.
Mhm.
So for us to wake up in the morning and have a thunderstorm, was a huge inconvenience, but you have to be resourceful,
Right.
And just to simplify and embellish that, one of the biggest reasons we shoot in LA, and we don't get the incentives. We can't. California is despicably unfriendly to independent films, and it's incredibly sad because the truth of it is they'll throw their money to a Marvel movie to keep it in LA, but Disney needs the money, like a hole in the head. The savings is what I'm talking about. And
Yes.
when you cut to the chase, an independent film, you don't have time to fly people in from other states and do all this. So that's why you shoot in LA, because we have all these recognizable, brilliant actors in our movie. And I'm not talking about Beau Bridges and Bruce Davidson, but just the eccentrics of having, all these people that live in LA be able to drive in their cars and show up on an independent film is something you cannot do if you go to Oklahoma to shoot an independent movie. You got to fly all these people there. You got to get them hotels. You got to get them per diems, and it's just cost prohibitive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's interesting hearing that, and especially just the juxtaposition of chatting with you here about an independent film while that sequel's happening right outside the
Yeah.
window. Right? It's just that it's fascinating because the independent filmmakers I talk to on a regular basis are always the most interesting because their hearts are in it, I feel like more so. That's not taking away from everyone that does big budget, but there's just a grittiness to the independent film that I think leads to more representation on what you're seeing on screen, that I really appreciate, especially with a film like this.
It's interesting. I'm sharing this because I shared it at a Q&A. When I met Bruce, and people always ask me, how did you get Beau Bridges? He's on all these major TV shows. He's doing a show, Maddox, right now. If you talk to Beau, you'll realize that this man is so passionate about the art and so incredibly dedicated. that he influences everybody. People can't wait to come to the set. There isn't anybody on this project that wasn't there for the passion, And I look out the window, and as you just said, these people are working their butts off. But the honest truth of it is, it's like apples and oranges. It's not the same medium, in my opinion.
Yes, understood, understood. What do you how would you sell this film to, I would say, multiple generations here? Because I think that there is an appeal to a younger generation wanting to see a film like this, older generation that can identify with maybe where Beau Bridges' character is. What's the appeal cross-generationally?
You know, it's a really interesting question to answer me. Number one, we screened the movie in in Morro Bay. We sold out 2 900-seat theaters. Okay, uh, just for the record, that's a miracle for an independent film.
It's great, yeah.
Now, I'm not blind to the fact that the people are biased because number one, it was shot, at least established in their own town. So they were very supportive. But I would say 90% of the people that came to that screening were over 60. And the message that they left me with was, oh my God, I wish there were more movies like this, on television or available. And then we screened it locally here in LA, and all of a sudden, the theaters got just an inordinate amount of people that are, for lack of a better word, parents of children with disabilities.
Oh, wow.
Um, and I'm thinking, how in the world did they find out about this movie? Well, they would see the trailer and they would go, here's a story about a young little boy who can't speak, but through a vehicle of communicating through a camera, he inspires the viewer. It doesn't have to be a parent of a child that can't speak. It
Right.
could be a parent of, any array of issues. And and this is undiscovered. And I'm being totally straight with you. It's like, who would have thought when I made this movie that it would be attractive to to parents of children with disabilities, or people over 60 that are inspired at the end of my movie, and they say, I'd like to be a mentor to somebody. How would I go about doing that? And we've been getting offers to speak to podcasts about mentorship, or podcasts about optimism. The world right now is so complex with negativity. Um, I'm proud to have made a movie that people find inspiring.
I love hearing that. I'll tell you, Jay, when I was reached out to about potentially wanting to chat with you, I looked at the trailer right away, and what struck me was not well. First, I read the synopsis and said, "Oh yeah, there's something here," and then watched the trailer. And what struck me was similar to what you're saying. Growing up with, or currently having a goddaughter who's autistic, growing up with living with my aunt who had Down syndrome, just a variety of individuals with intellectual and physical disabilities in my life. This really is a film where you can almost substitute what Miguel's character of Oscar is going through for any of those people in your life. And you're right. I'm thinking about the older individuals that you said came out to the first screenings, and people want that optimism. They want that hope, and they want to see that what they're going through in life, those people can be okay and find a mentor like is found in this film.
It's I wouldn't be fair if I didn't say I was inspired greatly by a wonderful film called Cinema Paradiso. Why? Because A, I had an interest in filmmaking, and B, he mentors a young little child to become a projectionist.
Yes.
And if to your viewers, if they've seen Cinema Paradiso or they haven't, they should see it. It's just a brilliantly made film, but it's inspiring because the whole community appreciates the message.
Yes.
And by the way, it's a universal message. You asked at the beginning of this conversation, what I might have um, kind of like adapted
Mhm.
from the screenplay. Jamie Murphy was kind enough to come to LA and collaborate with our writer Joe Gamache, and the two of them, we never really changed the script. What we did was kind of personalize it for me, and we made it, I think, more universal versus an Irish story.
Absolutely.
And I'm not ashamed to admit, that there's a lot of myself in this movie because, filmmakers, and I think they're lying if they don't say there's a big, part of themselves in every film that they make.
Absolutely.
So I am super grateful, that the movie's being received in such a fashion because, like you just said, for somebody to come up to me and say, I was inspired by that. I think I'm gonna go help somebody. Or my girlfriend's nephew, which was I think 7 years old, was crying at the end of the movie, and we said, "Are you okay?" And by the way, this has happened multiple times with kids that went with their parents, and they said, "Well, all I could think about was my grandfather,"
Wow.
and I just it breaks my heart because in so many ways in my generation I had the luxury of a mentor. In my children's, I've got three daughters. One of them is a chef, and she found a mentor, but the other two haven't yet. And I do have a belief that in as much as I know that Beau Bridges would like to give his father all the credit for mentorship, I think in most cases, a parent, the kids are on to him. They've got his number,
Right.
you know. And for me to achieve what Beau achieves in the movie, to me is not feasible because they got your number.
Ab
Um, and that's kind of the bridge that I'm talking about.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I wanna wind us down a little bit here, and I have to ask because I love hearing about this as well. With as passionate as you are about camera and the success that you're seeing right now, what's the next project that you're looking towards?
Well, we're super excited about a project called Yale, and the project was it's based on a true story about a bigamist that is called upon in desperation by his daughter that he's been disassociated with for 30 years to save her child's life because of a linkage with blood and organs. Like I said, it's a true story, and he it's just a remarkable story, and I can't wait to make it. It's the same writer that wrote Saving Paradise, which was my last movie, and it's got a soul. And you might say to me, so Jay, since you made a message here about mentorship or a message about how important community is, and how one person, this little child, could change the community, this movie is kind of like about each one of us has an opportunity to I think save another life, and that movie is a wonderful illustration. This new one that I'm contemplating.
That sounds wonderful and right up my alley, so I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for that as
There's
well.
no nudity, okay? Just remember that.
Let me ask you with camera,
Yeah,
by the time this releases, the camera will be available to rent, I believe, on digital and VOD?
that's correct. Starting Tuesday, the 24th of July,
Excellent.
23rd of July. Sorry about that.
Very good. Well, Jay, I appreciate you chatting. It's always nice to chat with a filmmaker who's willing to just dive into the questions and share as much as you have. And I think for people that watch an interview like this, it only brings them closer to what's on screen as if they needed any other reason to enjoy camera. So thank you for taking the time today.
It's been a true pleasure, Joe. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon, hopefully.
Okay. Bye bye.